Hi, I'm Sam Fessich from the EduMagic podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Coming up on episode 159 of the House of Edtech podcast, I'm going to be talking about teacher evaluations. I've got a great tool for distance learning that I'm going to recommend to you. And we're going to talk about Google and Flipgrid updates. Oh, and of course, there's a House of Edtech VIP. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of Edtech podcast. I am your host, Chris Nesi. The House of Edtech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. I discuss technology that is changing our classrooms and schools, and I share tools and tips that you can hear today and use tomorrow. You're going to hear the stories of teachers, leaders, and creators just like you. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way you teach and how your students learn. Welcome back inside another episode of the House of Edtech podcast. I am so glad that you make this show part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. It's my hope that after today's episode, you will definitely have some things that you can use in your classroom as quick as possible. Let's get right into it. And the first thing I want to share is if you enjoy listening to podcasts, and you're listening to one right now, so odds are you enjoy consuming audio content. The other show that I co-host, Podcast PD, with my friends Stacy Lindes and AJ Bianco, we do a Voxer group for Podcast PD, and in the summer, that group transforms into, in essence, what is an audio book club, where each week we listen to an episode of a podcast that either one of the three of us recommends or one of our listeners recommends, and we listen to the episode, and then we have a conversation about that podcast as it relates to any number of issues and aspects related to education. So as I'm recording this episode of House of Edtech, we are just wrapping up the first week, and I would like to invite you to become a part of that Voxer group and join the community that is Podcast PD. And if you'd like to do that, you can go to podcastpd.com/summerpd, and SummerPD is all lowercase letters. Of course, this will be linked out in the show notes because maybe you're running or walking or jogging or boating, or maybe you just don't have a pen or a pencil right now. So I would love to have you be a part of that and be a part of the conversation. The first episode that we listened to in the first week, we listened to Simon Sinek's new podcast, A Bit of Optimism, and we listened to the episode where he spoke with Bob Chapman all about leadership, and we have had some fantastic conversation over in that Voxer group. So I would love to have you also be a part of that since you enjoy listening to podcast content. That's the news and stuff I have here. Let's get right into some content and let's get into my EdTech thought. So for this episode's EdTech Thought, I want to talk about teacher evaluations. I got some great email feedback after episode 158. So that episode came before this one, chrisnessy.com/158. And Belinda Derling sent me an email about the fact that I had mentioned something about teacher evaluations in episode 158. Now, Belinda, thank you so much for the email. And again, if anybody wants to email me, you can just send an email to feedback@chrisnessy.com and share your thoughts on what I share. And I'm happy to talk about the things that you want to hear more about and things like that. Also, Belinda is on Twitter. She is at Belinda Derling, and that's BelindaDurling. So go give Belinda a follow. And here is the email that she sent me, and then I will comment. So Belinda says, I just listened to episode 158 about slowing down. First of all, I would like to thank you for the content you put out and the effort it must take to keep up to date on everything tech. I have learned a lot from you, and I'm excited about the prospect of audio tweets, which you discussed in this episode. I actually tried to do audio feedback for this, but my microphone isn't working for some reason. Anyway, I'd like to hear you talk more about why you think we should do away with teacher evaluations permanently. I am currently a first grade teacher, but I spent 9 years in administration before I got burned out and decided to go back to the classroom. So I have the perspective of seeing and evaluating many different types of teachers. And I truly believe most teachers are great. But there are always quote-unquote bad ones. Teachers who do not treat students with respect and or who are not effective at delivering content and engaging students. And even the good ones always have room to improve. I feel like we've gotten to a place in society where we think feedback is a judgment about who we are as a person, and no one wants to feel too judged or judge others. And yet, we all need to improve, and I don't think we can without some kind of evaluation. I understand that there is technically non-evaluative feedback and evaluative feedback, but as an administrator, it didn't make much difference to me. Those who didn't seem to be progressing in their quote-unquote non-evaluative coaching didn't do as well in their evaluations. With kids' lives and learning on the line, I think teacher coaching and evaluations are vital. During online teaching, a little harder to do and not very fair when it was the first time for some teachers. But still, I feel it is too important to give teachers full rein without feedback. I understand the argument for getting rid of standardized testing, as students' test scores are only the slightest sliver of evidence of good teaching. But I cannot understand why people think we shouldn't evaluate teachers. Right now, teachers are respected and appreciated more than ever due to the efforts parents had to make during the shutdown. But all it would take is a racist teacher to do some horrific thing to a minority child, or for it to get put out on the media for people to start trashing teachers as well. Please help me understand what you are thinking. And thank you again for your podcast. So maybe I was misunderstood, but I don't believe that we should eliminate teacher evaluations completely. I had seen a comment on Twitter that the state of Georgia for the upcoming school year was suspending formal teacher evaluations for the 2021 school year. And I think that now that I'm reflecting on it, I think there should be some evaluation to it. But again, we were just coming off of a time where nobody on this planet had experienced anything like what we had experienced. But it goes back to, are schools and districts going to be investing, and I do mean investing, money and time and resources into helping teachers be successful with hybrid learning, distance learning, remote teaching, all the different technology and platforms that are available. But I do believe that evaluations are an important piece of the process. Now, maybe I am more of a fan of evaluations personally because I do want feedback. I do want to be coached, and I do believe that I am coachable. And I will try to justify the things that I think are right for my students and in my class, but I am always willing to listen, and every teacher should be willing to listen to feedback. So, I do understand what Belinda is saying in her message about how some people are sensitive or hypersensitive to receiving feedback about their teaching, or even as administrators, you get feedback on the job you do. We just need to change our mindset in terms of what does feedback mean to us. If you're an educator and you think that, you walk on water and you can do no wrong, then you got some real serious reflecting to do. But we should all be open to being coached, and we should all be coachable. We'll all tell everybody that we want to do what's best for our kids, and we want to be doing, the right things in our classroom. And sometimes it takes the perspective of another person to be able to help us see what's important. So I do believe that feedback is important. Again, all feedback is feedback, whether or not, if we're talking about evaluative or non-evaluative. Some of you might call it a drive-by when, an administrator walks in your classroom. But I welcome people to come into my classroom. I'm the teacher who will email the principal and, my supervisor. And, I've emailed the superintendent and the assistant superintendent to come to my classroom and see what my students are creating and collaborating on. So not everybody is going to feel comfortable doing that, but you should want people to come into your classroom to see what your students are doing, because, again, that perspective, that other point of view might be helpful. When we read our own writing, we don't always see the grammar and punctuation mistakes that we make. That's why we have people proofread our work. So, Belinda, I do believe that evaluations are important, but I think we need to reconsider what an evaluation looks like for the near future. So, to permanently get rid of them, no, I don't believe that we should be letting teachers have free reign and do whatever they want in the classroom. Feedback is good, but for many people, we need to just reconsider our perspective on somebody else's perspective and not feel threatened, and realize that even when an administrator or even a colleague comes in and gives you feedback on something they see in your classroom, they're not trying to, knock you down. Ultimately, we all want the same thing, and that's for our students to be engaged and have a positive experience when they're in our schools and in our classrooms. So, Belinda, thank you so much for your email. And if you have feedback for me, again, feedback@chrisnessy.com, or you can go to chrisnessy.com/feedback. And there are any number of ways that you can send feedback to me in the future on any episodes or questions you have. And I certainly love to interact with members of the audience like yourself. So thank you so much for the feedback, and I appreciate it. And I guess that's my EdTech thought on teacher evaluations. And now it's time for this episode's EdTech recommendation, and I'd like to revisit a recommendation I made in the 2019 House of EdTech Smackdown, which is episode 147. If you haven't listened to the 2019 House of EdTech Smackdown, you can go to chrisnessy.com/147, and that's the episode I do at the end of every calendar year, where I turn the show over to you, the audience, and you submit the things that you love and you enjoyed this year in education and education technology. So obviously that episode will be coming up in December of 2020, and it's never too early to start thinking about the things you've enjoyed using this year, and to even consider sending them in by going to chrisnessy.com/feedback. But the tool that I want to revisit is called Parlay. And I think Parlay has a lot of potential, and I didn't realize it even at the time, that Parlay is something that could be very valuable as you start the 2020 school year, being hybrid or remote or any type of learning that is quote unquote not traditional, where you've got your kids face to face with you all the time. So let us rewind the tape and let's go back and hear about Parlay. Parlay puts your students and their unique perspectives at the heart of learning and gives you the data that you need to help them grow. So what does it do? You get a discussion prompt, and you can browse the Parlay universe, create your own topic, or ask their team to create a custom discussion prompt just for your class. 2, personal response. Each student views the materials provided and submits a unique response to a discussion prompt. 3, peer feedback. Students join the discussion, provide constructive peer feedback, and build on each other's ideas. Then you have number 4, a live discussion, where your students can delve deeper and build verbal communication skills in a structured and equitable Socratic seminar. So Parlay Ideas is a great Socratic seminar tool. It also provides you as the teacher with data analytics. You can review engagement data with the class, and you can reflect on how to improve discussions in the future. And of course, finally, you can also provide teacher feedback, where you can provide personalized feedback to each student, and Parlay makes some automated suggestions. This one is a paid thing, so you can, for free, you can get 6 free roundtables, 1 custom discussion prompt, and you can also sign in with Google or Microsoft single sign-on, and you can also connect it to Google Classroom. So if you're looking for a way to blend digital and face-to-face discussions, this might be a great tool to get started with that, and you can find it at parlayideas.com, PARLAYIDEAS.com. So I'm not saying to run out and pay for Parlay, But I think the tools and what Parlay can allow you to do in terms of facilitating discussion and having an online environment could be a valuable tool here in the fall of 2020 as learning changes. Now, their free plan has been updated a little bit since December of 2019. So for free, and there's no time limit, you can have up to 9 roundtables. You can make one content concierge request. You do get single sign-on through Google or Microsoft, and you can also still share to Google Classroom. Now, if you go to parlayideas.com/schools-districts, that'll show you the different pricing options. And if you need something more specific, again, if you're making those decisions or you can get this information to somebody who makes a decision in your school or your district, certainly they can do something more custom for a site license or a district license. But I think this could be a valuable tool. And I think even for free, it is certainly worth exploring. So check out Parlay and visit parlayideas.com. And that is my House of EdTech recommendation. So make no mistake, time is always moving. You know, I'm recording and releasing this episode in July of 2020, and the fall, the new school year, is coming. For some people around the country, school is going to be ramping up at the end of July, the beginning of August. And, you know, if you're like me and you're in New Jersey or other places like New Jersey, school is going to be starting, you know, just before or just after Labor Day in September. And while there are a lot of questions about what school is going to look like, it's still coming, and we still need to sort of prepare and think about what we want to be doing. So being that this is the House of EdTech, and I talk about education and technology on this podcast, I wanted to give you a couple of updates regarding 2 very powerful tools that we all know and we all really love. One is Google Meet, and the other is Flipgrid. So first, I'd like to talk about Google Meet. And I'm going to be quoting from the 9 to 5 Google website and also the Google blog. There'll be links to both of these posts in the show notes out at chrisnessy.com/159. So Google Meet is going to be getting some updates. They are previewing a number of upcoming features for education, and this includes blurred and custom backgrounds, hand raising, and new moderation controls. So like Zoom and other popular video conferencing applications, Google Meet will soon let you blur your background or replace it entirely. So, I mean, I really think that that's a cool thing to do with elementary kids and have the younger students kind of play around with their backgrounds. Myself personally, as a high school teacher, although I am fortunate enough to be in a dedicated space in my home where, you know, the room I'm in isn't, you know, like a bomb went off and, you know, I got laundry and it's a mess. You know, it's a nice workspace. It's a home office, as it were. But maybe, you know, if you're at your kitchen table or in your living room, you might want to have a different type of background or blur out, you know, what's in, you know, your home. So Google is going to offer a number of default backgrounds, and you'll also be able to upload your own. Although in admins, you can disable this functionality, but please don't, and recommend that we do try to have a little bit of fun with the technology. Now, besides being fun, Google is framing this as a way to, quote, hide surroundings you don't want others to see. While it will help, quote, students and educators feel more comfortable while on video from their homes, custom Google Meet backgrounds will be available in the coming months. Google also recently introduced a 16-person tile view and is now planning to add a user interface that can fit up to 49 participants at one time. Other features on Google Meet's roadmap include, number 1, hand raising. I don't know about you, but I did use, there was a Google Chrome add-on to add hand raising, but now they're going to build it right in for Google for Education. And obviously this can increase participation in larger meetings by enabling your participants to raise their hands when they have a question or something to say. Yeah, being in these virtual meetings can be very messy when everybody's talking at the same time. But certainly we've all started to develop best practices for being in a virtual video conference call. They're also going to introduce meeting attendance. And that's going to give you, as the teacher or the host of a Google meeting, a simple way to see who attended the meeting. And I'm really excited about this next feature, and that's going to be Breakout Rooms. So this is going to make it easy for large meetings to split into smaller groups and have parallel discussions and be able to reconvene once finished. This is going to be a game changer if your district wasn't using Zoom, which introduced Breakout Rooms. So if you're a Google district or you enjoy the Google platform, the Breakout Rooms are going to be vital to having your students be able to collaborate in smaller groups remotely and virtually. So I am really excited about the Breakout Room feature. They're also going to be introducing Q&A, which will provide a channel for the audience to ask questions without disrupting the flow of the conversation. So in essence, they're going to introduce the ability to have almost, I guess the chat would be more for back channeling, but this will be a way that, I guess, outside of the chat, you'll have a way for people to submit questions. And I'm thinking that this might look similar to how participants looking at a Google Slides presentation can submit questions. If you've ever used that feature on Google Slides, where you can allow the audience to ask questions during the presentation, it puts a little, a short link up at the top of your presentation that people can go to and submit questions while you are presenting. So that could also be very valuable, because I know from being in my own chats and seeing my own children do chats on Zoom and Google Meet with their classes, that sometimes the chat can get filled up with people just kind of back channeling and chatting. They're also going to introduce polling. So that'll allow you to engage your students in large virtual meetings in real-time polling. So that could be fun. And also additional moderator controls. That'll give you, as the meeting host, additional controls for muting, presenting, allowing people to join, and a couple of more features. Google is also rolling out more controls for you this year. Educators are going to be able to better control meeting requests through a quote-unquote less intrusive interface and other behavior changes. So when someone asks to join a meeting or knocks, they won't be able to knock again after being rejected. So if you ever dealt with somebody trying to continuously try to get into your meeting that shouldn't be there, you're not going to be interrupted once you reject them the first time. So that's great. And it's easy for me to say, and it will no longer show up after you reject a request twice. You, as the teacher or the moderator of the meeting, will also be able to end the meeting for all participants, ensuring that no students linger after you have left the meeting. So I know that's something we were all concerned about, or many people were concerned about, in terms of students staying online and staying in these video chat rooms. And, you know, there's always that fear that something bad could happen. And this is a great way and a nice piece of technology as a feature to sort of prevent that. And Google will soon block anonymous attendees from joining any education meetings by default, though schools will be able to opt in to allow anonymous participants. I don't know why anybody would do that, because you should know who is going to potentially try to join your meeting. So there you go. And on the hardware side of things, Google is also adding virtual whiteboards to Google Meet through the Jamboard platform. So Google is going to be integrating Jamboard into Meet, and that's going to make it easy for those who are remote to participate in brainstorming activities, but it also lets you return to the whiteboard right from your laptop or your mobile device. So this is really good stuff. So to summarize, you're going to have increased control of your meetings. You're going to be able to create more engaging virtual classes, because, again, that breakout feature is going to be so critical to giving your students a smaller virtual meeting to attend. And I mean, you know, for G Suite education customers, you're going to have additionally some premium features. So you're going to be able to, again, with that attendance, you're going to be able to track attendance and provide a record of which students join the class. Again, these breakout rooms, you're going to be able to split into smaller groups. Q&A is going to provide you a way for students to ask questions without disrupting the conversation. And I mean, this is all really exciting stuff. As Johnny Carson would say, this is some wacky, wild stuff we're going to do here. And that was probably the worst Johnny Carson impression I could have ever done. So I'm not going to do that one again. I will just stick to doing Godfather type stuff. I was going to say, speaking of Godfather type stuff, but that would be a horrible transition. So that's all. Those are updates on Google Meet coming. hopefully before the start of your school year here in 2020. And let's talk about Flipgrid. So Flipgrid announced its yearly major update back on June 29th, 2020 at its annual Flipgrid Live event. These Flipgrid updates will launch starting on August 1st, and they will continue to roll out these updates monthly as we get into the fall. If you'd like to see a replay of the entire Flipgrid Live event, I've included it in the show notes for this episode. It's embedded right there. You can watch it on chrisnessy.com/159. And so the things that they are updating, number one, they are making updates to the Flipgrid Educator dashboard. Number two, they are improving the Flipgrid experience for students. Number three, they've made improvements to the Flipgrid camera. And number four, they're going to be rolling out some changes to the Flipgrid Discovery Library. So let's tackle these one at a time. Let's talk about your experience as a teacher interacting with Flipgrid on the back end. So when it came to improving the Educator dashboard, Flipgrid heard you loud and clear. You want to make it super simple to create topics and share with any community. And to do that, sometimes you don't need a grid. So you're going to be able to create topics that stand alone. So they're having standalone topics where you can simply create a discussion prompt, choose how your community will access it, and then you can share it. They're also introducing single email access. So when inviting your community to join your Flipgrid topic, you can now grant access to specific emails. This makes it super simple to invite guests and family members onto your Flipgrid discussions. They're also improving Adobe Spark integration. Flipgrid has partnered with their friends at Adobe to make Spark videos play right inside of your Flipgrid topics. They're introducing groups. Yes, they still have grids, only now they're going to be called groups. And groups will allow your learners to access multiple topics with a single code. And your existing grids are now listed as groups. You will still be able to access Flipgrid like you always have, just by creating a group and then adding topics. You'll also be able to add multiple groups with their new topic-first design. It's now going to be super simple to add a single topic to multiple groups. And the last update to the Educator dashboard, they're introducing a new quick view. So it's now easier than ever to review and share learner videos, reply with comments, and edit captions right from your Educator dashboard. The next area is the student experience. So Flipgrid has redesigned the way the community engages with Flipgrid to make it simpler and more fun. Here are the updates that will help your students enjoy their Flipgrid experience even more. So they're going to have access to topic grid view. So it's now easier to view and respond to your topic prompts. Videos also now have more space on the screen and will play right from this view. There's also something that's going to be called Video Player View. When you click into a video, a new modern design will put student voice front and center, and you can now also see which video is up next to watch. They're improving the comments feature, so now your learners can reply to one another's videos with text and video, taking social learning to the next level. As the educator, you are in complete control. You can moderate the topic, and this allows you to preview before activating any video or comment. You can remove any comment anytime. An advanced artificial intelligence looks for bullying and toxic language to ensure your Flipgrid is a positive and fun experience for all. And finally, in this area, they're improving educator comments. So how you comment. So as the teacher, you can leave feedback comments via text or video, just like your learners. You can make your comments private, so only the individual learner can view it, or public, so everyone in the topic can view. And your students can view your comments right from your Flipgrid topic. The next area is the Flipgrid camera. And the camera is like the heart of Flipgrid. That's the whole point of Flipgrid, is the fact that you can record video and you can see who's participating and you can hear voice and all those things. So the camera is super critical. It's the heart of Flipgrid. It is what you and your students use to express creativity and tell your story. Last year, according to Flipgrid, 2.6 billion videos were posted to Flipgrid. That's almost 80 videos per second. I'm glad they did the math on that because I wouldn't have figured it out. So the camera. You now have boards. You can use backgrounds like graph paper, lined or dotted paper, or cork boards. You can enjoy split screen recording with your video on one side and a whiteboard or a blackboard on the other. You get access to new fonts. We love a good font, right? Just don't use Comic Sans. So they've introduced and announced 8 new fun fonts to help your students express their creativity, with even more fonts coming soon. They're introducing new filters. They've added several new filters, from color gradients to privacy filters like block mode. They're also introducing frames, so you can add some fancy flair to your work with custom frames like Neon News or Jungle, courtesy of their friends at Microsoft Education. Because if you didn't know, Microsoft owns Flipgrid, so there you go. And they're also improving stickers. They are releasing new sticker packs every month, including themes for math, equality, and speech bubbles. They're also adding GIF stickers. That's right, I say GIF. If you say otherwise, you're wrong. So they're adding new sticker packs and building in the ability for you to stack and layer any sticker on your screen. What new stickers do you want to see? Well, just tag them on Twitter, because I got to say this, Flipgrid is great at interacting with people on Twitter. So just tag them at Flipgrid, ask your questions, make your comments, give them feedback, and they listen. And the last area that they updated was the Flipgrid Discovery Library. So last year at Flipgrid Live, they introduced what was called Trending Topics, Playlists, and Featured Educators in the Discovery Library. Now they're going to have collections. So now everyone can create and share collections in the Discovery Library. Collections are groups of Flipgrid topic templates. Collections can be shared with any Flipgrid educator. And they're going to be having featured topics. Now, spotlighting a topic of the day to jumpstart engagement with your class, and a new Wonder of the Day in partnership with their friends at Wonderopolis. So those are the updates that are going to be rolling out to Flipgrid. So again, they've made improvements to the Flipgrid Educator dashboard. They have made improvements to the experience that your students will have. They have added some great features to the Flipgrid camera experience and the Discovery Library. So as you embark on planning and preparing for the fall of 2020 and starting that brand new school year, whatever it's going to look like, hopefully Google Meet and the improvements it's making and what Flipgrid is what Flipgrid's going to allow you to do will make your job a little bit easier and create a better experience for your students. Because it doesn't matter whether you use these two tools or not. Just be intentional, and just remember, as I pull out, the House of EdTech, soapbox, and just remember, start the school year, whatever it looks like, by building relationships. Relationships are the key to success. Make your students feel welcome, get to know them, let them get to know you. Remember, you're a human being, you teach other human beings, and remember to allow them to see that that's the case. And you will be successful when you start this new school year, and I wish you nothing but the best. I'm going to need it myself, so I'm looking forward to what Google Meet's going to offer, and, hitting the ground running with Flipgrid and having my students engage and participate and just, again, build those relationships. So hopefully you find these updates valuable. And if you have questions about how you can use these tools in your classroom, feel free to reach out to me. Go to chrisnessy.com/feedback or send me an email, feedback@chrisnessy.com. And I'd be happy to get on a Google Hangout or a Google Meet with you or talk on the phone and help you in your planning. So just reach out and we can certainly make that happen. And now it's time for this episode's House of EdTech VIP. And I'd like to introduce you to my pal, Ken Shelton. Ken currently holds a master's degree in education with a specialization in educational technology as well as new media design and production. Ken has worked as an educator for over 20 years and most recently taught technology at the middle school level. As a part of his active involvement within the educational technology community, Ken is an Apple Distinguished Educator and a Google certified innovator. Ken has worked extensively at the policy level and was named to the California State Superintendent of Public Instruction's Education Technology Task Force, or the CSSPIETTF. I jest. Ken regularly gives keynotes, presentations, consults, and leads workshops covering a wide variety of EdTech, equity and inclusion, multimedia literacy, cultural relevance, visual storytelling, and instructional design topics. Ken was the ISTE Digital Equity PLN 2018 Excellence Award winner, and upcoming here in July of 2020, Ken is behind what is being called Cultivating Liberation, Becoming an Anti-Biased and Anti-Racist Educator. You can find more information about this workshop and this multi-day event at theliberatededucator.com. And just to give you a brief summary, quote, "Your liberation begins here. This 4-part series will support the establishment of and access to the necessary foundations in becoming an anti-bias, anti-racist educator." All of the workshops in this series are designed to be 90 minutes of active learning, growing, and reflecting. You can find more at theliberatededucator.com. You can connect with Ken on Twitter. He is at K_Shelton, and that's SHELTON. And you can visit his website at kennethshelton.net. There will be links to all of this in the show notes. And congratulations to you, Ken. You are a House of Ed Tech VIP. And before I say goodbye today, I want to share some feedback that I got that obviously wasn't related to the EdTech Thought, so I thought I would place it here near the end of the episode. So first up, we got a little feedback from friend of the podcast, former guest, and big-time fan, Derek Larson. What do you got, Derek?
Chris, I just listened to the most recent episode of House of EdTech. I love that you threw that down, man. I love that you called me out for my LastPass. As soon as I heard you mention password, I thought, oh, he's going to totally challenge LastPass. And I loved it. I love that you did it. I think it's fabulous. I've not ever heard of that new service. And I'm pretty happy where I'm at with LastPass. But you know what? Honestly, yeah, go get it. I love it, man. And more than anything, I just love that you're talking about password management, because that is like one of the biggest low-hanging fruits that teachers can fix. And there's online safety and online security. So what a great topic. And again, it's always fun when you throw it down a little bit like that. So I gotta get on a call with you again here. I know I keep saying that, but I need to do it for real. Make some stuff happen. 2020 is not over yet. I mean, if AJ can do it, I can do it. I got to get my stuff going. So, all right, man. Thanks.
Hey, you got it, Derek. And yeah, we got to get the Derek Larson show up and running. Yeah. And again, I didn't really throw you under the bus, but again, you are right. Password management and how we access the multitude of accounts that we have as people, as teachers. We all have a lot of accounts online. And again, is there anything wrong with LastPass? No, LastPass is a very viable platform and service to do your password management. But for people who haven't yet even jumped into managing their passwords, Bitwarden might be a great way to get started. So, Derek, you can stay with LastPass. People can switch to Bitwarden or vice versa, as it were. It doesn't matter, but you are right. The important thing is that we do manage our passwords in a safe manner, so that way we don't lose access to sensitive information and data that we want to have access to, as by the minute, more and more of what we do goes online and becomes web-based. So password management is super important. And yeah, Derek, we're going to get on a call. Next up, we got some feedback from my friends to the north, and let's hear from Hema Sharma.
Hi, Chris. This is Hema here from Toronto, Canada. I just started listening to your podcast. I'm actually an occasional teacher, but just trying to, stay abreast of the new changes. And this is my first time listening to you, and we'll continue and try and subscribe. Thank you. Love your podcast so far. It's been about 30 minutes since I've been listening, but we'll continue and provide more feedback and would love to hear from you. Thanks.
Hema, thank you so much, one, for checking out the House of EdTech podcast. Hopefully you were able to subscribe to the show, and hopefully you're excited to hear me throwing your feedback in right here in the very next episode. So thank you for taking time to send in some audio feedback. As a podcaster, I thrive on hearing from my audience. So if you've never sent feedback in, go to chrisnessy.com/feedback. And Hema, hopefully you made it past the 30-minute mark and still wanted to continue to listen. Otherwise, you're not going to hear this message, but I think you are. And real quick, before I say goodbye, make sure if you're not connected with Derek on Twitter, he is at Lars3EB, and also connect with Hema. She is at Hema K. Sharma, and that's HEMA KSHARMA. They're both on Twitter. I love the feedback, but it's time to say goodbye. That's going to do it for this episode of the House of EdTech podcast. Thank you again to Derek and Hema and Belinda for your contributions and thoughts and your point of view. Let's keep the conversation going and share your thoughts on this episode or any episode that you listen to. Based on looking at the numbers for this episode, not this episode, but the podcast, I know that there are people listening to episodes throughout the back catalog. So send feedback anytime about any episode that you listen to. Questions, comments, feedback. I want to hear from you. For this episode, you can go to chrisnessy.com/159. And to send overall feedback, go to chrisnessy.com/feedback. Now, before you return to your regularly scheduled summer vacation, tell somebody else about the podcast. I've been saying it for years now that word of mouth is the best way to share a podcast you love. If you want to rate and review it on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to it, that's cool. But I want you to tell people about the podcast, either face-to-face or on Instagram or Twitter. You can tag at Mr. Nessy. You can tag at House of EdTech on most platforms, and just let me know that you're talking about the show. Use the hashtag House of EdTech. Tell people, spread the word. Let's change our little area of the world. See, I realized that I'm not going to change the entire world of education, but through this podcast, I am able to impact a small piece of the world that I live in. So you who's listening, we're making a difference together, you and I. So let's keep doing what we're doing and just kind of grow one person at a time. You could also become an awesome supporter of the podcast. While I do this out of the love of it, it does cost me money to do this. And maybe you want to help support and offset the costs of this podcast. So if you get value, you can decide what this is worth to you, and you could become an awesome supporter. Many thanks to my current awesome supporters: Carlos Garza, Anthony Arnaud, Dan Gallagher, Jeff Herb, JP Presevento, Kyle Wilcox, Mike Messner, and Peggy George. Thank you for all of your support. If you want to become an awesome supporter, you can go to chrisnessy.com/awesome, and the Awesome Supporter Program is powered by patreon.com. Now, maybe that's not for you, so I'm introducing a new way to support the show. You can go to chrisnessy.com/buymeacoffee, and you can donate the cost of a cup of coffee. And thank you to Dan Kreiness from Leader of Learning for a recent cup of coffee. The next episode of the podcast is 160, coming at you on July 26, 2020. Until next time, thanks for learning with me, and remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try. Real quick, I'm still here. Ken Shelton, the VIP on this episode, he is going to be joining Podcast PD live on Sunday, July 12th. So if you can come out live, that's today, if you're listening to this the day it comes out, at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. If not, make sure you subscribe to Podcast PD by going to podcastpd.com/go, and Ken Shelton will be the next, an episode of Podcast PD that is out. And I believe that's going to be episode 79 or 80. So subscribe to Podcast PD and look for a conversation that AJ, Stacy, and I have with Ken Shelton. I'll see you next time.